You know, usually when we try to envision some sort of blueprint for the future, we tend to think in terms of, well, addition.
Right, like adding things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We imagine adding flying cars or maybe establishing new colonies on Mars or, developing some incredible artificial intelligence that basically just makes our current systems faster.
We take the world we already know and just sort of layer new technology right on top of it.
Yeah, pretty much. But imagine a future that is completely stripped of all the administrative architecture that currently governs your life.
Just totally gone.
Right. Picture a society with absolutely zero laws, no countries, no currency, and perhaps most surprisingly, no marriages and no traditional family units at all. Just an absolute blank slate.
Wow, it functions as, like, the ultimate systemic reset. We're really looking at a total teardown of the infrastructure of human existence, at least how we currently navigate it.
Yeah, and welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is to explore this radical, uncompromising blueprint for a future human utopia. And it's one that challenges basically every single assumption you have about how society functions.
It really does.
The source material we're unpacking today is a highly specific essay. It's titled The Connotation of the Highest Level of Human Civilization. It was written by an author named Deform Buddha back in May 2023, and it was edited by Peter.
Yeah.
And just to set the stage, this text is not offering like a gentle suggestion for minor policy reform. It outlines a complete paradigm shift for the entire human race.
It definitely does. But, before we really dig into the architecture of this society, we should probably establish the parameters of our discussion today.
Good idea.
Because this text presents a very absolute worldview. I mean, it is a utopian manifesto, and it operates entirely on its own internal logic.
Right.
So our goal here isn't to endorse this vision, and we definitely aren't going to debate the political or, practical validity of the author's claims. We are maintaining strict impartiality. We're simply acting as neutral guides to unpack the fascinating mechanics of the society being proposed, just so you can examine these concepts and understand the author's vision exactly as it was written.
Right, we're just the messengers here. So, to build this new civilization, the author insists that we first have to look at what must be destroyed.
That's a lot.
Yeah, no kidding. The essay claims that the highest stage of human civilization requires the complete eradication of all identification and credentials.
Right.
So that means no ID cards, no passports, and no work permits. And the text specifically targets professional validation, too. So no medical licenses, no judge certifications, no professor certifications, and absolutely no business licenses.
It is the total abolition of institutional validation. I mean, when you think about how much of your identity, your authority, and even your sense of security is currently tied up in pieces of paper issued by a governing body.
Right, it's everything.
It really is. The scale of this change becomes so apparent. The author is basically arguing that in the highest level of civilization, the entire concept of proving your worth through some centralized bureaucracy is just totally obsolete.
It's kind of like looking at the scaffolding around a building, We tend to view laws and licenses as the steel beams holding society up, like they're keeping the whole structure from collapsing.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
But the author is arguing that the scaffolding is actually what's rusting and causing the building to decay. And if you just remove it, the internal structure, which is humanity's innate goodness, is finally strong enough to stand on its own.
Exactly. That is the core psychological shift the author is proposing here. They argue that we are making a fundamental error if we try to judge this future society using our current mindset.
Oh, because we're too attached to the rules.
Yeah, basically we are projecting our current anxieties onto a radically different psychological landscape. So the safeguard in this proposed civilization isn't a law. It isn't a physical barrier or a police force or a piece of paper.
So what is it?
It's a total internal transformation within the human being. The author states that in this society, everyone will be entirely selfless. The population will just naturally exude the nature of truth, goodness, beauty, love, sincerity, and trust from within.
Okay, wait, hold on. I mean, I understand the concept of a moral awakening, but morality and skill are two entirely different categories of human existence, right?
Right.
The author actually brings up driver's licenses as an example of something that will be abolished. But I could be the most loving, selfless person on the entire planet, and if I don't understand how a transmission works, I'm still going to crash a car.
Right.
Or, to take it to the extreme, if I don't know where an artery is, I'm going to botch a surgery. So how does the author reconcile good intentions with actual physical competence?
Well, it relies on the idea that true selflessness inherently includes profound self-awareness and a devotion to the collective well-being. So according to the text, the unskilled drivers simply won't drive. Why? Because their love for others dictates that they step aside. They wouldn't dare perform a surgery because the ego that usually says, I can do this, I deserve to try, that ego has been completely eradicated.
Oh, I see.
They recognize their lack of skill, and they just naturally choose not to put their fellow humans at risk. So the internal moral compass perfectly regulates behavior, which renders the external license completely unnecessary.
Okay, so if we are tearing down all the external walls and relying entirely on this newly perfected internal compass, where do these people actually live?
Right.
Because you can't just have 8 billion individuals wandering the earth with no structure whatsoever, especially if the traditional nuclear family has also been abolished.
Yeah, that would be chaotic.
Yeah.
So the traditional modes of production and life are replaced by what the author calls the second home mode.
Second home mode. Okay.
Yeah, and the text mentions that this emulates the thousand-year world mode, which is essentially a conceptual template drawn from spiritual traditions. It's like this idealized, long-lasting era where humanity lives in perfect harmony with the laws of nature.
Oh, wow.
The author's trying to pull that ethereal concept down into a practical daily reality. The second home becomes the foundational building block of this entire utopian vision. It basically replaces the nation-state, the corporation, the city, and the family unit all at once.
That's massive.
Right.
And the text argues that our current systems of control, like exclusive marriages, private property laws, that these are actually the engines that generate greed and conflict.
Yes.
The author is claiming an inverse relationship between restriction and civilization. The higher the degree of freedom, the more civilized people become. And the author states this isn't just a thought experiment, right?
Oh, no, not at all.
They claim they have proven this psychological shift through 14 years of practicing this exact production and life mode.
It is a profound claim of empirical evidence. By removing the boundaries, the author argues you remove the friction that actually causes human conflict.
Right.
The prohibition itself creates the desire. When you remove the prohibition, the opportunistic behavior just fades away.
Let's look at the actual architecture of these second homes, because the text gets incredibly specific here. The world will be populated by tens of millions of these communities, operating on universal values and the way of nature.
Right.
And each home consists of exactly 30 to 300 members.
Yeah, that specific number is actually the key to understanding how this society functions without a legal system. It aligns very closely with sociological concepts like Dunbar's number.
Which is the cognitive limit to the number of people you can maintain stable social relationships with, right?
Yes, exactly. It's usually estimated around 150. When a society has no laws, no police, and no written contracts, the only way it can possibly function is through reputation and social trust.
That makes sense.
And you can only maintain a reputation-based economy if you actually know everyone in your community. By capping the homes at 300, the author ensures that impersonal bureaucratic structures never form.
Ah.
The community essentially polices itself through deep interpersonal bonds. If the group gets too large, anonymity sets in, and anonymity is where selfishness breeds.
But the citizens don't stay in one home forever, do they? To prevent stagnation, every single member rotates to work and live in an entirely different home every 3 years.
Yes, every 3 years.
You don't own anything, so you have absolutely nothing to pack. And every 36 months, you simply move to a new community of 300 complete strangers.
Just think about the logistical and psychological implications of that rotation. It completely eradicates the concept of permanent settlement or entrenched regional power.
Oh, definitely.
If you are uprooting your life that frequently, you literally cannot amass local political influence. You can't form insular, exclusionary factions or family dynasties. Your loyalty is constantly being severed from a specific piece of land and redistributed to the entire human race.
But if you don't own anything and you are moving every 3 years to join a new community, that completely shatters the concept of a national border.
Exactly.
You can't be a patriot of a specific country if your home is just wherever the global collective needs you to be next, which is exactly how the author justifies the next major shift in this society.
Because the population is flowing freely worldwide, the author claims that all national, party, religious, and cultural barriers simply vanish. Everyone becomes a member of what the text calls the Earth family.
Earth family. That's a beautiful concept, but the scale of this integration requires a massive leap in how we think about a global economy.
It really does.
The text describes a scenario where this Earth family seamlessly handles whatever tasks are needed for human survival. So, power generation, farming, clothing production, educating children, shepherding on the grassland, or technological innovation in a laboratory. It is all handled by the collective.
It is a global division of labor based entirely on collective need and individual capability, completely devoid of financial compensation.
And that really forces us to question personal ambition. I mean, if I'm a scientist and there is absolutely no currency, no private property, and I have no traditional family to leave an inheritance to, why would I put in the grueling hours to invent something new in a lab?
That's the big question.
Right. What drives a person to push the boundaries of innovation if they receive zero financial reward and zero personal ownership over the discovery?
Well, the author's answer requires a total shift from extrinsic motivation to intrinsic motivation. We are so used to doing things for a reward, right? Money, status, or security.
Yeah, that's how our world works.
But the text argues that this big family resolves all the existential anxieties that currently drive human behavior. Food, clothing, housing, transportation, aging, and death, they are entirely taken care of by the collective.
Wow. So no more worrying about retirement.
Exactly. When a person is no longer terrified of starving or going into debt for medical care or being homeless in their old age, that desperate scramble for personal wealth just loses its entire purpose.
The hoarding instinct basically just dies because there's nothing left to fear.
Yes. The author concludes that humans will freely use their intelligence and talents purely for the benefit of the community because the desire to serve replaces the need to survive.
The text outlines the ripple effects of this too. The author states that hunger disappears completely, and because of this environment, the probability of theft, robbery, corruption, fraud, deception, and war becomes essentially zero. They just cease to exist. I mean, you can't steal if nobody owns anything. You can't have a war over resources if the entire planet operates as a single fluid cooperative. The author concludes that no one would even want private property. The desire for ownership is viewed merely as a symptom of an anxiety-ridden society.
It is an incredibly ambitious vision, and it requires a complete rewiring of human nature, which, naturally brings up the question of implementation. How confident is the author that humanity will actually adopt this model, or that this immense logistical puzzle will actually hold together?
Well, the author exhibits an uncompromising, absolute certainty. The text explicitly states that they have thought of every single problem the reader might be worried about, and that they possess all the solutions.
All of them.
Yeah. The author writes that no one's thinking in the world today is deeper than theirs, and no one's solution to solving problems is superior.
They even reference the concept of the Eastern saint, which is a prophetic figure expected by various traditions to bring profound wisdom to humanity. The author claims that even if this highly anticipated Eastern saint arrives, their theories and practices will not surpass the blueprint laid out in this essay.
It is an incredible display of confidence. I mean, utopian literature often presents a better way to live, but this text isn't offering a suggestion. It presents the singular, exclusive path to salvation.
Right.
The author warns that humanity has only one bright future ahead, and that is to follow exactly what they say. They use a very specific phrase to enforce this, too. The author warns that no matter how intelligent a person might be, they cannot escape the 36-8 diagram arrays.
The 8-diagram arrays, or bagua, are profound concepts in ancient Chinese cosmology and philosophy. They represent the fundamental principles of reality, the shifting energy of the universe, and the deep interconnectedness of all things. So, by stating that the reader cannot escape the 36-8 diagram arrays, the author is claiming that their societal blueprint is perfectly aligned with the inescapable fundamental laws of the cosmos.
It's essentially the ultimate conversation ender. It kind of reminds me of a software developer telling a user, it's not a bug, it's the core operating system.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it.
The author is establishing a logical trap where if you disagree with this blueprint, you aren't just wrong in a political or economic sense, you are fundamentally out of sync with the universe itself.
It concludes the essay with a cosmological ultimatum. Following this guided path, moving into second homes, abolishing property, eradicating credentials, and dissolving nations, it is framed not as a social experiment, but as a cosmic inevitability.
Wow.
Any deviation or resistance is basically framed as a failure to understand the ultimate reality of existence.
Let's take a breath and recap the sheer scale of the journey we've just taken through the source material. We started with the complete dismantling of our current reality, a world without driver's licenses, passports, medical certifications, or the traditional nuclear family.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We explored the complex logistics of the second home mode, where humanity relies on reputation and Dunbar's number to self-police in communities of 300 people. We examined a global workforce driven entirely by selflessness rather than currency, rotating every 3 years to prevent the formation of borders and greed.
Yep.
And we ended with the author's uncompromising declaration that this is the inescapable truth, hard-coded into the 36-8 diagram arrays.
Yeah, even if you view this text as an extreme, unworkable manifesto, it serves a deeply valuable philosophical purpose.
How so?
Well, by visualizing the total absence of our modern systems, it forces you to pause and reflect on the invisible structures that govern your daily life. Just think about how much of your daily stress, your anxiety, and your decision-making is directly tied to the very things this author wants to abolish.
Oh, yeah. Like the pursuit of currency just to survive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or the maintenance of private property to feel secure. Or the immense stress of acquiring credentials to prove your worth to an employer or a government.
We literally spend decades of our lives trying to get the right piece of paper just to prove we belong somewhere.
Yes, we do.
Hmm.
And by envisioning a world where all of those mechanisms are suddenly gone, the text acts as a mirror. It reflects the immense pressure that our current societal structures place upon us. And it challenges us to imagine who we would be if all of that pressure were suddenly released.
And that leads perfectly to the final thought I want to leave you with today. We've spent this deep dive exploring a grand global shift, but let's shrink it down and make it personal. Let's make it about you. Imagine you wake up tomorrow and the world has completely changed. You are suddenly placed into a second home. You are surrounded by 300 total strangers. There are absolutely zero rules. There is no currency to fall back on and no bank account to define your status in the group.
That's a terrifying and liberating thought.
Right, and there's no personal property either. No impressive house, no car, no carefully curated wardrobe to hide behind. In that raw, entirely stripped-down reality, what is the very first innate skill or personality trait you possess that you would offer to the community to prove your selflessness? Think about it. Until next time, thanks for taking the deep dive with us.